What's good, y'all? How's everybody? Happy Monday. I've taken a little bit of a break, but I guess I'm back. BT Podcast up and running. 2016, the playoffs are over. I repeat, the playoffs are over. I told y'all I'd return once there was a victor, and it looks like we have a winner. Did not expect it to be Cleveland. Almost said Golden State because Golden State kind of was supposed to win, but obviously that didn't happen. Typically, I sit down, I have a few topics already written out, some discussions, a few things to break down. But this one is a little different because it's more freelance and more just me talking about a lot of what was observed in the 7-game series between the Cavs and the Warriors. One thing I will admit, and one thing I'll stand behind saying, is that the better team won. And if you know and you understand basketball, you'll realize exactly why I said that, or why I say that the way that I do. Because let's face it, there's no knock against the Warriors. The Warriors played a good game. They came out, they fought with their hearts, they put it all on the line, and they did two things that I was surprised by. They kept home court advantage initially, and they got a win in Cleveland. The last thing that I remember saying to you all, and the last thing that I've harped on and I really stand behind, is I really wanted it to be clear that Cleveland had to win 2 games in Golden State. So what happens? Well, game 5, Kyrie and LeBron both decided to put up 41 points apiece. That was game 5. Game 6, oddly enough, was there's another piece to this, and I want to make sure I don't ignore this. In game 5, you also had Draymond Green suspended due to the what the league observed as a groin kick to the groin by him in game 4. So they kind of didn't have their heart and soul on the floor. Like, a lot of people feel like if he played, they would have won the series. Who's to say, who's to know? What can we forecast or predict or break down? It is what it is, moving forward. So you have that factor. Then going into game 6, and this was a very unique situation. Steph Curry got a lot of unique fouls called on him. They were fouls, but it was shocking because it was the one time the league was calling fouls. As I've learned with sports and as I've learned with the media, you can never make everyone happy. This is the prime example of not making everyone happy, because a lot of people had Golden State pretty much finishing up the series. When I went to Bar Louie back when Game 4 was played, that was when Golden State went up 3-1. So it was a coincidence that from that time up until now, it was a whole nother team. LeBron turned on the killer instinct switch. But the thing I liked the most about it in Game 7 is that he turned on his defensive killer instinct switch. So there's a difference between the two that you end up having to learn when it comes to basketball as a whole. Most players who are superstars are usually known for being superstars on the offensive end. What makes a superstar stand out or step up where it matters most is when it's on the defensive end. LeBron proved that. He stood behind it. If you go back and look at history with Jordan did the same thing. Getting key steals. Like the steal he got in the, I call it the, I don't even want to call it the push off, because I know a lot of Jordan fans will knock me out if I say that. But the clutch jumper, the clutch mid-range is what I'll call it. That's a more safe term. Once the clutch mid-range was connected, then it all was pretty much uphill from there. So having said that, in this series, LeBron did a lot of the defensive pieces, or did a lot of the defensive things that other guys were able to do or should have been able to do, but he just came in and just did it. The shocker of it all, and I like these. This is the point of basketball that I love and enjoy, because it kind of just puts a lot of those first and least expected things into perspective. For instance, when Jerry West pulled off the similarity of what LeBron did, he got the MVP in the finals on a losing team, and no one still to this day will ever do that. A lot of people had this impression of, even if Golden State won, LeBron should have gotten an MVP. Wouldn't happen. Not going to happen. Not the way the league is set up. If LeBron did not win a championship this year, it was going to be an interesting offseason. The best part of it is he fulfilled his goal. As the term was used, he brought a championship back to the land. So for those of you who don't understand how serious this was with Cleveland, they haven't won a championship in any sport in 52 years. And to make matters worse, the team that won that sport was the Cleveland Browns back when Jim Brown was playing. So let that sink in for a second. And I mentioned this to some people who I was watching the game with, and this is something that I talked about a few podcasts ago if you go back and look. Even though they had the gold jerseys, they had the black jerseys, I'm gonna get back into the black t-shirts in a minute. The truth of the matter is, Cleveland was one of the few teams in the league that did not have that gold tag on the back of their jersey. So now when next season comes, LeBron is going to definitely be donning his Cleveland wear with a gold tag to prove and confirm that he was able to get a championship. A lot of people say the refs rigged the game. I look at it like this. It still is involving 10 guys playing. Because on the opposite side of it, and anybody who plays street ball, I haven't played in a while because I'm old and I know better, but when you play street ball, there's no ref. So it's pretty much you got to call your own calls. And even if you call your own call that you know you did or you know that happened, the person who committed that call or that play will argue it up and down. Personal prime example. The NBA, whether people want to admit it or not or accept it, the NBA gets extra steps. Why? They make millions of dollars. People who play the game every day, no. You can only take 2 steps. You don't get 2 pivot feet, and you can't go in circles and make pivots on the fly. It's not changing. It's set in stone. It's been that way for years. So no need trying to change it now and do something different. But LeBron did stepped up and proved that he was wanting this bad. It was interesting because Tyronn Lue did some unique coaching because, number one, and I still think this was a shocker that nobody noticed, he won a championship playing small ball. And what was coincidental was Golden State had to play small ball because Bogut was out for the rest of the series. So I kind of, like I said, I broke down the pieces of it. Game 6, Steph Curry, he fouled out in the fourth quarter. The last foul was he chopped him. I mean, he pretty much chopped it and I'm using the term chopped, but he went for the ball, smacked LeBron, and it's tough because when you're right there in front of the referee and he calls it, I mean, what you expect? Part that was amazing was a lot of people thought he was going to be a suspended Game 7, but by law, by logic, by reality, the mouthpiece would have had to hit the actual referee in order for there to be any suspension involved. Anytime that's occurred in the past, they always said spend a $25,000 fine. That's not changing. They have no plans of changing that anytime soon. So don't get your hopes up and think something new's coming down. So we had that incident happen in Game 6. So Cleveland kind of just capped that off, and it was like, all right, we're going to bring it back to Golden State. When Game 7 had been planned and prepped and talked about, everybody and anybody kept constantly saying, who are you going for? Who do you think is going to win? How do you think it's going to go? My honest answer to everyone was the same across the board. And anybody who's listening to this podcast or anybody who's heard me talk about it will confirm. All I wanted was a good game. I wanted it to be full competitive. full competition. Everybody bring your A game. Put your lunch pails up. Go to work. Let's do this 48. Play these 48 minutes. Like they said in the playoffs, and like they said during halftime of Game 7, you saw a lot of players play nearly 24 minutes in the second half, because you have to take in mind, this is the last game of the season. After this game, the focus shifts to football. There are two dynamics when it comes to sports, and because this is a sports podcast, I'm gonna go there. So any of y'all who listening know me, know I'm gonna keep it real. Football makes a good amount of money. Basketball makes a good amount of money. Baseball, yes. Baseball players make a lot of money. But as far as the sport itself, it gets its revenue kind of in spurts, and it's not as consistent. Is anyone at fault for that? No. I wouldn't even think of placing that as the fault or quote unquote the blame game. I just think the game is the way the game is, and you just kind of have to know it, play it, and handle it accordingly. So with that being said, when the second half of Game 7 started, a lot of guys weren't coming off the floor. Draymond Green played as good as he could. Klay Thompson had a decent performance, but it wasn't his best. Steph Curry, towards the fourth quarter, or near the end of the fourth quarter, lost his fire. He couldn't hit the key shots when they counted. But as an added bonus, and this is going back to what I said, and this is what they always say about the NBA, and we hear the term, but you really don't realize how serious it is. Defense still wins championships. If Kevin Love did not give his best effort he did on defense on that last play, yes, Curry got the shot off, but it was a good quality shot, but it wasn't his higher quality shots to kind of give them a chance of making it a good game. The game by that point, it was kind of like when Kyrie hit the three, nobody expected that three to fall. It went. Golden State tried to answer. By that point, it was more so about free throws and just closing out the game. And when you get down to the clutch of a game, forced shots are going to happen. And the toughest thing was shooting jumpers. And I've said this for years, and as much as I watch and keep up with basketball, it's the knowledge and the know-how in me to realize and understand that you're going to have jumpers. Anytime you shoot a jumper, it's a long rebound. Unless it just lands on the goal. If it lands on the back of the rim, it's going up and it's open. It's a 50-50 ball, depending on who's going for it. Two players who were not talked about much during the playoffs, but they showed up and showed out, were J.R. Smith and Tristan Thompson. Tristan Thompson has gone through so much adversity with which hand he wants to shoot with, how versatile of a player he is, whether he should have got the money he got, was he worth what they were giving him, just all of these quote-unquote tangibles, when the truth was he came to play. And he did his job, and they won. Now I'm going to be petty podcaster, or podcast petty, however you want to put it. But I found it interesting that when Cleveland won Game 6 in the black t-shirts, they went back to the black t-shirts, because the truth of the matter was no one expected. Everyone knows that LeBron is not a fan of the shirts as far as jerseys, but I guess if you got 41 points in them the first time, 26 along with a triple-double isn't a bad stat line to get in Game 7 with those same jerseys that a few months ago you had ripped off because you were not feeling it whatsoever. And he vocally gave his opinion about those shirts to the point that it was known he did not like them, and that's okay. That's the joy of being a player. The other side of it, though, however, is with doing that, you have to be prepared for how the media is going to perceive. I am glad I'm not a media person or a sports, working for ESPN or something like that, because there are two things that I would have done to be me. Number one, I would ask LeBron that question. So it's an interesting thing that you all went to Game 7 wearing the black T-shirts, and we know for quite a few years you've been very adamant about how much you did not like those shirts. What changed, other than scoring 40 points in Game 5? And I would probably stand there and be with the most saltiest pout mouth face, and I know he would give me an answer because he's him, but it just would be a unique question. So that's part one. And part two, and this, I always talk about this every time playoffs come around in any sport. I always dream of doing that interview with the losing team or the losing coach, because the winning coach, yeah, they're happy and they're excited, but as on the losing side, it's like another ambiance altogether. And sometimes we don't understand like the seriousness and how heavy or how intense it is unless you obviously walked in those shoes. So I think about that whenever I watch the playoffs. Now I've been talking about them and I've kind of been dodging them, but I'm going to go ahead and get into it now. Tyronn Lue showed up and showed out. I mean, he kind of kept his team under wraps. It wasn't anybody who wants to say, "Oh, LeBron did all the coaching." You really don't know basketball. Lue did a lot of. He was able to kind of change the culture of the team, if that makes sense. And I'm going to say this because I don't know if I've talked about this before, but this is something that was brought to my attention, and it's something I've been educated on, and I practically try to educate others on when it comes to the game itself of basketball. So back in the day, you had your old school coaches, Rudy Tomjanovich, Larry, I can't think of their names, Pat Riley, Phil Jackson, George Karl, your coaches from the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s maybe, but they kind of had their way or their style of coaching. It works during the old school era. Now, when guys come to warm-ups and practice, they'll practice with each other and do drills and do, shoot-arounds and stuff like that. But it's a more relaxed environment, so it's kind of like a give and take, because they're going to give their effort when they get on the court, but during practice, it's more, okay, let me put my beats on, or let me put my little small earbuds in and kind of just jam out on some music and, set the Bluetooth over in the cut and just work on, do my drills or whatever. So it's different for everyone, but in hindsight, it works. And here's why I say that. I'm looking at it, and I like my new setup. So I haven't really told y'all about what I'm doing, but I'll kind of give a little bit of exposure before I continue the story. I'm trying out a new software as far as doing my podcasting. So I'm going to take step one as far as recording, and hopefully you'll hear a much unique quality product in the future. That's all I can tell you. So I'm going to learn how to get this all worked out and handled. But anyway, let me go ahead and continue what I was referring to. So a few years ago, of course, Greg Popovich, with San Antonio, they won. But they're an old school, traditional team where it's like, hey, 5 passes, everyone touches the ball, going to run the clock down as much as we can, manage the clock, organize, whatever. Golden State won the championship last year, running gun, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Splash Brothers, small ball. Bogut would start but not really play many minutes, and you kind of ran the offense through your guards. And it was a more up-tempo, upbeat, shoot first, don't worry about if you miss later type of ordeal. Well, this year, again, Tyronn Lue, first-year head coach. And I think that's a unique trend to have 2 first-year head coaches win championships back-to-back. I need some facts, and I don't have them, but I wonder if anyone has if that's ever happened before, to win your championship, like 2 coaches back-to-back win their championship their first year as coaching. Because Steve Kerr pretty much ordained Mark Jackson's team. Tyronn Lue mostly ordained David Blatt's team. Call it for what it's worth. So with that being said, we'll move forward and present how Cleveland mainly was the same way. LeBron, as we all know, can play all 5 positions. You don't sometimes look at it as, you don't want to look at it that way, but he can. You can put LeBron at the 5 if needed, but it's on a as needed basis, which is very important. So you have that factor. Then you have Kyrie Irving, who pretty much is one of the top point guards in the NBA, who has been very quiet but been solidly putting up like statistics that no one would understand. Tristan Thompson, true forward, in the game, just playing his game, doing his job. Kevin Love has kind of been like the 3/4. He's mostly been the 4. J.R. Smith, your spot up shooter, hits a few clutch jumpers here and there, and he was very emotional during the championship when they did the interview with him after the game, and I don't blame him because it was coincidence that it was Father's Day, and with his father being there, so that made it even better. So that certain things I think humbles us, and I think for him that truly humbled him because he was glad, he was very excited to have won that championship. So that's my main view of the playoffs. I'm glad it's over, but I also know that this is where my sports podcast is going to be unique because now I'm going to be in research mode of football and pushing baseball. Because what'll probably happen, knowing me, is next week I'm going to talk about the draft because that's coming up. We have been hearing about it. It's been talked about. It's been thrown in our face from every angle. Yay, Cleveland won. They brought back a ring to Cleveland. The land has a ring. Whoop-de-doo. Lovely life. Now, who is going to be going to Philadelphia? Is Ben Simmons going to be gone, which we kind of already knew, or will Brandon Ingram go there so that LA can pick up Simmons and make him a very marketable piece to winning a championship or winning in general in LA? Have to see how that goes. Not gonna lie to you, I'm not really too thrilled about this draft class. Thank you, 12 o'clock reminder. No, it's time to go to bed. Anyway, this has been a unique day, and I haven't really talked much about it, but it is what it is. Anyway, I just want people to know I'm working hard to make this a better show for me, as well as a better show for you all, and anyone who does take time to tune in. I do appreciate it. I will tell you in advance, I don't remember who I said was going to win the playoffs or the championship finals, but I'm glad Cleveland got it. A lot of people aren't because they aren't big fans of LeBron, and that's all personal preference. A lot of people look at him as a baby, and they're right to some extent, but a lot of players in the league cry, but we don't see all the crybabies accordingly. I'm a Houston fan. Dwight Howard is the biggest crybaby of them all, but that's my 2 cents. So I'll go ahead and leave that here. If you do like the podcast, continue listening. You can go back and listen to previous episodes. They are on Spreaker, Spreaker.com/user/BryTay, which is BryTay podcast, all one word. And if you want to go back and actually check out some of my older podcasts when I was first messing around and trying to get something started, I may use that page. I can't say yet because I'm still working on some stuff. But BryTay82, same link. Go check those out. I truly am just doing what I'm doing and just making the most of this, and I hope you all enjoy. I am Feeney. Until next time, this is BT signing out. Peace.